Today, we're looking at the Argos Rage Expert Advisor by Mr. Alexander Prutkin. So this guy is another one of the famous MQL5 developers who tends to put out bots which give you beautiful, beautiful backtests. However, oftentimes people say that when you run them live, as much as a backtest looks fake, there is oftentimes a real strategy behind the live signal or behind the live trading bot. Therefore, let's actually dive in to see, is there something really here that goes beyond the backtest, and how does this thing actually work? So one of the unfortunate things about MQL5 is that developers are incentivized to make the bots look too good to be true, so that enough people kind of almost like ignorantly buy the bot because they think they're going to become billionaires overnight, right? Or that they're going to never take a loss and have this beautiful straight equity curve. So they're pretty much taking advantage of the fact that a lot of people are just not super knowledgeable about trading when they find the MQL5 marketplace. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the bot itself is horrible. Sometimes they just code it in such a way where in a backtest it looks perfect, but when you run it live, there's still a real strategy there. It's just not obviously a magic money printer. And this happens because, I don't know, like a few days ago, somebody sent me an email saying like, hey, I want a bot that's stable because this bot I was using had 2 losses in a row. And you're just thinking like, that is stable. Like in trading, if a good bot will have a 50% win rate, right? But it will have a super high risk reward, or 2-to-1 or 3-to-1. So there is kind of still a contingency of buyers who don't really understand the kind of the statistics behind trading, and things like this kind of prey essentially on that user base. But let's now see, maybe there's something real here, and let's give the guy the benefit of the doubt. And as we can see, he's claiming that it's using DeepSeek AI, and essentially it's kind of building on his previous bot Argos Fury, and that this one is apparently more advanced. And he gave a little grid here that says trade timing goes from very good to excellent, and the adaptive logic is better, and that the market interpretation apparently went from strategic zones to deep level. And some of this it's just generic sounding words which don't exactly mean anything. So we're not really getting anything there, but we're saying that apparently it understands volatility shifts when liquidity builds up, when momentum becomes tradable. Okay, so that could very well be like maybe it's looking for some sort of zone-based bot or looking for rejection out of a zone, but really we're not seeing anything crazy here. The main thing is, like, I would never buy a bot where you don't have some idea of how it works. Because most developers will give you, even if they're not going to give you the secret sauce, like some general overview of what the bot is. You can say, hey, this is a mean reversion bot, it's triggering off the RSI, or you can say this is a trend following bot, we're trying to capture the full daily range, this is an opening range breakout bot. And if you kind of have a general idea of what type of strategy it's running, it helps you know what to expect. You can know like mean reversion bots, generally speaking, have inverted risk rewards, but super high win rates. Whereas a trend follower, usually you're going to have a lower win rate, but you can have a super high risk reward. So it's good to kind of have an idea of what the bot does before buying it. Whereas if they just say a bunch of like random jargon words which don't really even mean anything, you can't really assess how it works. Let's hop over to the signal here. The guy's put a handful of trades. It's on WellTrade, which is everybody's favorite scam broker, because you can manipulate the signals. I think you can literally go in the back end and change it. So that's not really a great sign. So there's no real signal here to date. And guys, as you can see, this is a red flag. If you see this, don't buy the bot, because most likely it's not super authentic. Now, here I ran a backtest, and actually the statistics look reasonable just because it was trading with a minute lot size. So it turned, or they don't look reasonable, but the growth of the equity curve is not crazy. Like making a 10% return in a year is very conservative. However, on a 0.19% drawdown, the return over drawdown there is ridiculously good. It's too good to be true. Whereas here we're also seeing that it has a 98% win rate with roughly a 3-to-1 inverted risk reward. So here it would be reasonable actually to see a 90% win rate or a high 80% win rate, or actually 90 is a bit too aggressive. I'd say high 80s win rate, high 70s, low 80s. That would be reasonable given the invertedness of the risk reward, because you can simply take our trusty calculator here and we can say that, pardon me, 1/3. Like, yeah, we would need something along those lines in order to actually break even. Therefore, that would be kind of what we would expect. Whereas if you see a win rate here of 98%, it's just too good to be true. And it means that it's likely either overfit, a history reader, or just heavily over optimized. If we go here into the actual inputs, we can see that there's no place to put a DeepSeek API key, which also means that nothing real is really happening there. The actual trades, it's very sparse and it's just picking these individual trades. It's also not trading too frequently, which usually is a sign more of an over-optimized one than something which is just even a very spread sensitive bot would usually have a lot of trades, whereas if you just see a fairly small amount of trades, not that small, but like a moderate amount of trades, but they seem to be almost perfect, that's usually a sign of over-optimization and or history reading, especially if there's not much rhyme or reason. So yeah, there's nothing really here. Like we can't assess anything from the backtest because like obviously you're never going to have an equity curve that looks like this. If you did, you would just put it on 1,000 times leverage and you'd be printing cash, right? Nobody would sell that ever. It doesn't make any sense. And at the same time, like we're not giving any information about the strategy, and there's not even a place to use an API key. So all of that is no bueno, and it's probably an indication that it's just pretty sketchy. So here, once again, it's a nice and beautiful panel. That, once again, as I've said in many videos, the prettier the visual backtest looks, or the prettier the running looks, with a lot of these scam bots, they'll do that to kind of obscure the fact that there's no strategy. So honestly, guys, like from what I can see here, we don't have any idea of what it actually does. Like clearly what we're seeing in the backtest is fake. Maybe there's a real strategy behind it if we go digging, but you'd really have to go digging. So yeah, just avoid this one. Like it's not good. There's so many good bots out there. Don't buy, like if something looks too good to be true, you should probably get your alarm bells on that it likely is. So not a great bot, stay away, buy a good one instead, and I'll see you in the next video.